Sara Gilbert spent nearly 3 decades letting the world see only what she chose to show them, and even then, only a carefully measured portion. The actress who made millions laugh as the sharp-tongued Darlene Connor on one of television's most beloved sitcoms was privately carrying a weight most of her audience never once suspected. Not just questions about her identity, but the slower, quieter pressures of fame that arrived too early. A father in financial freefall, relationships that unraveled without warning, and a public persona that never quite matched the private person wearing it. What makes her story worth telling is not the glamour, because the glamour only ever sat on the surface. What matters is everything underneath it, and there is considerably more underneath than the industry ever let on. Born on January 29, 1975, in Santa Monica, California, Sara Rebecca Abels came into a family with deep Hollywood roots and a complicated emotional architecture to match. Her parents, Barbara Cowan and Harold Abeles, were both Jewish, and her maternal grandfather was Harry Crane, the legendary comedy writer who created The Honeymooners, a man married to Julia Crane, a dancer once named Miss Brooklyn. Her mother, Barbara, had previously been married to actor Paul Gilbert, who died of a brain hemorrhage in 1975, and through that marriage, Barbara had adopted 2 children, Jonathan and Melissa Gilbert, both of whom went on to become recognizable faces on Little House on the Prairie. Sara also had 2 biological older half-siblings, Patrice and Joseph. Harold and Barbara divorced not long after Paul's death, and in 1984, young Sara made a deliberate decision. She dropped the surname Abeles and took on Gilbert, connecting herself formally to her mother's world and to the siblings already building careers in Hollywood. That name change was not merely paperwork, it was an intention. That intention found its fullest early expression on the set of Roseanne. Watching Jonathan and Melissa work had ignited something competitive in her, an urgency she had no interest in suppressing. After early television movie appearances and a Kool-Aid commercial that paid the bills and little else, that energy found its home when, at 13 years old, she landed the role of Darlene Connor on what would become one of the defining sitcoms in American television history. The show ran from 1988 to 1997, following a working-class family in Illinois with an unflinching directness that the medium rarely attempted at the time, and Darlene sat at the center of it, sarcastic, artistic, politically engaged, growing up in real time in front of an audience that recognized her immediately. Critics praised Sara's performance with a consistency that went well beyond polite industry habit. Between 1991 and 1993, she collected 3 Young Artist Awards, then received Emmy nominations for Outstanding Supporting Actress in both 1993 and 1994. The producers valued her enough to restructure entire production schedules around her education, filming her scenes in New York, while the rest of the cast worked in Hollywood so she could attend Yale University. She even wrote a storyline that became the season 4 episode, Don't Make Me Over, which made clear that her contribution to the show extended well past what appeared on screen. 9 years on that set shaped her professionally in ways that a conventional acting career simply could not have replicated. During those years, she also moved into film, appearing alongside Drew Barrymore in Poison Ivy in 1992, and reuniting with her in Riding in Cars with Boys in 2001, with a role in Light It Up arriving in 1999. But while her public profile climbed, her home life carried a tension no one on the outside could see. Her father, Harold, once a successful lawyer, had lost his financial footing badly following his divorce from Barbara in 1983. When he began asking Sara for help, she was 18 or 19 years old, and, as she later described it, earning more money than any teenager reasonably should. She helped at first. The requests continued, and the relationship frayed under the weight of them. She eventually stopped the financial support, a decision she turned over in her mind for years afterward. When Harold became ill, she stepped back in as his primary caregiver and remained beside him until he died, trying in her own way to close a chapter that had never been properly finished. After Roseanne ended in 1997, she pivoted rather than retreated. She directed a short film called Persona Non Grata in 1998, appeared on stage in a production of Hot L Baltimore at the Williamstown Theater Festival in Massachusetts in 2000, and accumulated guest appearances across a wide range of shows including The Simpsons, 24, Will and Grace, Law and Order Special Victims Unit, and Private Practice. In 2004, she took on a recurring role on ER, playing the sharp medical student Jane Figler across seasons 11 through 13. A brief run on the WB sitcom Twins in 2005 ended abruptly when a network merger canceled the show after a single season, and appearances on the CBS sitcom The Class as Fern Belch followed from 2007 onward. That same year brought her to The Big Bang Theory, where she played Leslie Winkle, a physicist functioning as a love interest for both Leonard Hofstadter, played by Johnny Galecki, and Howard Wolowitz. The casting carried an irony nobody on set could have missed. Galecki had been Sara's actual boyfriend during their years on Roseanne, and now they were playing variations on the same romantic dynamic again, years later on a different production. Her role expanded in the second season as Leslie became more woven into the show's storylines. But by 2009, the writers had developed new female characters, Amy Farrah Fowler and Bernadette Rostenkowski, and Leslie Winkle quietly faded from the scripts. What might have registered as a professional dead end turned instead into a release. On October 18, 2010, the talk premiered on CBS with Sara not just as one of its hosts, but as its creator, the person who had designed and built the entire concept from the ground up. 6 years after that premiere, the Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Entertainment Talk Show recognized what she had built. Constructing something in daytime television from nothing is a particular kind of challenge, one the industry doesn't hand out many second chances on, and she had pulled it off entirely on her own terms. July 2010 also brought a different kind of disclosure. Just before the talk launched, Sara came out publicly as a lesbian, describing the experience as genuinely frightening, even as she went through with it. She admitted that talking about her sexuality on the show or in interviews always carried a background anxiety, a part of her perpetually calculating what visibility might cost professionally. Her path to that moment had been long and private, and Johnny Galecki had played an unexpected role in the process, offering support in space that she noted a straight male co-star wasn't obligated to give. When she finally spoke about it publicly, Galecki offered to appear on the talk and sit beside her while she did, an offer she described as one of the most generous things anyone had extended to her. Their bond, which began as a teenage romance on the Roseanne set, had deepened over decades into something neither of them seemed to have a convenient word for. She called him like a member of her family, and the description fit everything they had been to each other across 30 years. Her romantic life had been moving on a parallel track. Beginning in 2001, she had been in a relationship with television producer Ali Adler, and together they had 2 children, son Levi Hank, born in October 2004, and daughter Sawyer Jane, born in August 2007. When the relationship ended, the reasons were never made fully public, but Sara spoke about the split with a directness that didn't try to soften the difficulty. She questioned aloud whether long-term partnership was as achievable as the culture insisted, while making clear she hadn't stopped wanting to find out. Love arrived again through Linda Perry, the musician and songwriter best known as the frontwoman of 4 Non-Blondes, and their relationship was exposed by photographers before Sara had fully processed what was happening. Their engagement came in the spring of 2013, and on March 30th, 2014, they married. In February 2015, their son, Rhodes Emilio Gilbert Perry, was born, and for a stretch of years, things appeared to have settled into something lasting. Reports that surfaced around the time of the engagement suggested that Adler had felt blindsided by the development, describing the news as a final blow to something she had believed concluded more mutually. The full truth of what happened between Sara and Adler has never been publicly confirmed, and Sara declined to settle it with statements. What happened between them remained between them, which is precisely how she preferred it. On the professional side, the Roseanne revival in 2018 briefly carried the feeling of a triumphant return. 8 episodes began airing on March 27th. Ratings arrived in encouraging numbers, and a second season was already under discussion, until May 29, 2018, when a social media post from Roseanne Barr, targeting Valerie Jarrett, an advisor to former President Barack Obama, led ABC to cancel the production within hours. Sara made clear publicly that neither she nor the show carried any connection to what had been written, but the network's decision held firm. What followed moved with surprising speed. On June 21, 2018, ABC announced a spin-off called The Connors, featuring the familiar cast with the removed characters written out, and by October 2018, the show was airing with Sara both acting in it and serving as executive producer. She also partnered with experienced producer Tom Werner to launch Sara Plus Tom, a production company formed from the merger of her television company with Werner Entertainment, a collaboration that had grown directly from their partnership on The Connors. Launching that company required leaving the talk after 9 seasons, and Marie Osmond stepped in as her replacement when season 10 began that fall. Alongside the Connors, she executive produced The Preps of Pittsburgh, an 8-episode half-hour series developed through Sony Pictures Television and Amazon Studios, adding another production credit to a list that kept growing longer. Her marriage to Linda Perry ended with a separation dated August 13, 2019. By December 27th of that year, the separation was formalized legally, and the divorce became official on October 15, 2021. Both parents received joint custody of Rhodes. Linda Perry, speaking at a public event in January 2020, described Sara as someone she still loved and still regarded as part of her ongoing adventure. Sara's own account of that period leaned inward. 3 months of therapy, ketamine treatment, and what she called getting it all out. Every tear, every feeling she had been holding without realizing how long she had been holding it. She said she wanted people to know that it does get better, and then she added the part most public figures leave out, that struggle can continue even inside improvement, that the process is still a process, and that this is entirely acceptable. Coming from someone who had spent decades managing precisely what the world was permitted to see of her, that kind of openness landed with a weight that no rehearsed statement could manufacture. Sara Gilbert's story, traced across television, film, theater, production, and the interior work that never gets credited, is the story of a person who consistently found her footing on her own terms, at real cost, across a genuinely long time. The entertainment industry did not give her clarity about who she was. She went and built it herself, quietly, without asking permission, and that might be the most Darlene Connor thing about her.